We are recording. Alrighty. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm with otherpeoplesmovies.com, and today we are going to be breaking down and discussing the comedy classic My Cousin Vinny. Came out in 1992, in March of 1992, and my history with it is I saw it opening weekend. I saw it with my father, and I wish I could remember the screening I saw better. I remember having a 180-degree reaction to it about halfway through. Like, I remember being a 12-year-old sitting through the first half and being kind of bored. And I wish I could remember the point in the movie where it just clicked for me and I started laughing. But I'd say roughly anywhere from a quarter to halfway through, it just hit me that this is brilliant and I was laughing and that it was a great movie. I wish I could remember more about that screening. I wish I could remember audience reactions, and but I don't. And I've seen it probably about a dozen times since, if not more than that. So, what was your introduction to it, Robin?
I don't think I ever saw it in theaters. I probably saw it on TV or like I don't know, maybe like my parents rented it at some point. But yeah, I mean, I have watched it many times since then. And there actually used to be this place in Brooklyn, New York called Videology, where it was just like sort of this bar, and in the back of the bar they had just stacks and shelves of DVDs, and on certain nights they would show certain movies, and they would also sort of like they like in based on like what the movie is, they would have like some food that follows that theme. So, for example, like my partner and I went and saw this movie, and they gave you grits
Yeah.
to sit there and eat.
Nice.
And because there was like butter or something like that in grits, like my wife is vegan, so I ate them, but both, and they were pretty good. They
Nice.
were not authentic Southern grits. They were probably like the instant cooked grits or whatever, but they were still satisfying.
Nice. Nice. How about you, Taliski?
Okay, so I was going to say something first because we got onto something that I thought I was going to mention. As I think the lone Southerner, um, any self-respecting Southerner, I don't give a fuck. I will make 5-minute grits in a goddamn second. I don't give a shit. Like I'll eat cheese grits. I don't give a fuck. Like fuck that. The only thing that the self-respecting Southerner will not do is put sugar on their grits. That's insane. That's fucking insane. Um, anyway, my introduction to the movie, I didn't see it till college. Actually, I was late. Um, I bought like a $10 copy on DVD at Virgin Megastore because I heard enough about the movie. I was just like, okay, I'll check it out. So like, I bought it and watched it, and I heard like, it was like kind of like it's fairly famous and legendary. So I was like, okay, let me check it out. I watched it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I wasn't like blown away, but I was like, this is cool. And it kind of like it was like a slow burn for me that I just like I watched it again. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I watched it. I was like, yeah, that's not too bad. And then I think what really really solidified it for me was actually 'cause I wanted just like having a good appreciation for this movie. It was this YouTube channel called Legal Eagle. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. This guy. It's a lawyer who, his thing at the beginning when he first started was he would review the legal accuracy of movies, and he did My Cousin Vinny, and talked about the fact that like the movie is so legally accurate that it actually is taught in law school. They'll show it as like here's a example of like what you can do, and I was like, and that just gave me like a hell of a lot more of an appreciation for the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Well, the
Watching that,
director was a law student at Cambridge, University of
oh,
Cambridge.
no, no,
And I have that written down in my notes. But yeah, there's a reason for that. The director went through the script, totally went through it with a fine tooth pen and fine tooth comb, and he just totally he made it as accurate as possible. And lawyers praised this movie for its accuracy.
yeah,
For that
it's
very
supposed to,
reason.
like so like watching it again, like then you get to see like how it's very brilliant and like how smart it is in terms of like they make Vinny seem like this idiot, but he actually is a very good lawyer. He's
Yeah.
like really good at shit. You're just like, oh, okay, like, and it just made me appreciate the movie a hell of a lot more. So anyway,
Nice.
the first time I watched it was on DVD in a $10 bin at Virgin Megastore. Store. So
Nice.
circa 2003 or 4.
Nice. Nice. How about you, Ryan?
I rented it. I didn't see it in theaters, but like in third grade, I rented it.
Nice.
Well, my dad rented it, and it was the first rated R movie that my dad let me watch because he
Nice.
insisted it was that funny.
Nice.
And he was like, normally, don't say any of these words because it's pretty vulgar. Most of the script is.
Yeah.
But it's he just was like, you can watch this, just don't say any of these words at school, blah blah blah, because he wanted me to see it because it was that funny and smart. And I agreed. I mean, like it clicked for me. Oh, this is going to be real funny when they get pulled over. What they think is for the tuna, and the cop pulls a gun on them and screams, "Show me your hands!" And he just says, "Jesus," because that's when I was like, "Oh my god, this is so fucking funny!" Like, and then it just kind of unfolds into just a really simple, super like palatable, like comedic premise of like arrested for something they didn't do.
Yeah.
Get a lawyer who is never studying for, took him 6 years to pass the bar or whatever. But yeah. And then I honestly was pretty obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Like I had the Austin Pendleton's performance like memorized, and like I think I might have done it for a talent show or something in third grade. Just because I like to the syllable of like his kind of like stuttering issue when he gets super tensed up and nervous. That was to me the funniest part. And like I mean, laugh watching it. I just watched it last night, and just when he can't get Mr. Tempted's name right and just gives up, and he says Mr. Ugh, and you could just see him with his hands like, I don't know, I give up.
It's a great character.
But yeah, yeah, I saw it pretty like in third grade and rented it, and like it gets funnier over the years.
It has for me too. It has for me too. I just watched it a couple of weeks ago, and I laughed. I probably laughed harder at my most recent viewing of it than I had even in the past, and I've liked the movie since I was 12.
Same, so, out loud too.
Yeah,
like my fiance was asleep, and I was like, oh, I should be quiet just because stuff I've seen it a million times, and it's just those performances. It's just such good acting, and it's like it's just crazy. Like I think people forget it kind of gets written out as just kind of some like obscure Joe Pesci movie, but it's just like, no, it's like comedians should watch this, or like comedic writers should watch it, because it uses, there's scenes in it that individually are like, sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
Oh, you're fine. You're actually going right into my next subject, which is this a movie people still talk about? So you're already answering my next question. So, I mean, in your experience, it's kind of obscure today.
Yeah.
I think so too. I don't talk to many people who know this movie well. I think of it as a classic. I'm not sure if other people do. What do you guys think, Robin and Taliski?
I mean, I view it as a classic. I don't have too many discussions with people about it. It doesn't come up in conversations. Perhaps I will use that. We'll get more, or use animated GIFs of it in Teams chats or something. But just to get it started. But I mean, the fact that it was showing at Videology and people showed up to it, a good amount showed up to it, shows that people still do know of it. And maybe that's because this was in Brooklyn, New York, and that's Italian Americans, New Yorkers.
I would imagine New Yorkers above all else celebrate this movie. Maybe Southerners, but I would imagine it's huge amongst the New York crowd.
Well, for me, I mean, yeah, I think it's the exact same as Robin. at least when, as I said earlier, like I went to go buy the movie for like $10 when I was like, oh, I've heard so many things about this movie. I haven't seen it. It's $10. I'll watch this movie. I have no idea what people might think of it now, though. Maybe it isn't a classic, but then again, it's never really came up to me like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
let me talk about My Cousin Vinny. So
My experience is people who know it love it, but
Yes.
I'm not so sure it stood the test of time and has acquired a huge audience over its years. I'm not sure if it has. I wish it had, but I don't see Facebook groups about it. I don't see, stuff like we did a podcast on the Burbs. That's got a huge cult following today. I don't see the same thing for My Cousin Vinny, and I wish I did. So,
Same.
yeah.
Yeah, like Robin, you said using a GIF in a Teams chat of My Cousin Vinny. If you did though, whoever has seen it, I guarantee you will lose their shit.
Oh
They'll be
yeah,
like, "My Cousin
absolutely,
Vinny!"
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the couple people I do know outside of this podcast who have seen it can quote it all day. A friend of mine I used to work with just the other day. Well, no, it was it was last night when I was rewatching it. We used to always use the term "dead on balls accurate"
Right.
based on My Cousin Vinny. And
Yeah.
when I was watching that scene, I took a photo of it and sent it to him, and he replied, "I guess the fucking thing is broken," because he, like us, just like knows, kind of just knows can quote the whole thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So, My Cousin Vinny was released in theaters, as I said, on March 13th, 1992. It was received well and was a big hit for a smaller movie, grossing nearly $53 million domestically on a reported $11 million budget. It currently has an 85% approval from critics and 87% from audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. As I said earlier, it was directed by Jonathan Lynn, who previously did Clue, which I know you're a big fan of.
Oh,
yeah, and
I did not know that.
Yeah,
oh shit.
And Nuns on the Run, which is a movie I haven't seen since I was a kid. It's crazy. It's Eric Idle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Idle and some other guy whose name I can't remember. It's not. I remember it being a pretty funny movie. But yeah.
Interesting.
And then he went on to do Sergeant Bilko and the whole 9 yards. Len has a law degree from the University of Cambridge, as I said, and he used that to make it as accurate as possible, which we already discussed. Len is English and did the final rewrite of the script before production. The two Utes bit in the movie is actually directly inspired by Len not being able to understand Joe Pesci's thick New York accent, and he added it in the script. To what extent do you guys feel that the director's unique perspective, both in his law history and his English heritage, is responsible for the movie's success? Does an outsider's perspective on both Southern and New York characters help the movie, in your opinion? I personally, I'll answer first. I personally think it does definitely help the movie. I liken it to Paul Verhoeven satirizing America with RoboCop, with his first American movie. It's got it. Sometimes I feel like the best critics and the best observers of American culture are people outside of it. I think you just have a fresh perspective. I'm not so sure people truly understand the insanity of America unless when they're in the thick of it. I think you need to be kind of outside of it to kind of see it for what it is. But that's my opinion. What do you think, Robin?
In my opinion, I can't say no. My answer is yes. That's about it.
Sure. Okay. Fine with me. How about you, Taliski?
I would say I do know also the writer, because yet again YouTube. They actually interviewed the writer who did a lot of research in terms of the legal accuracy too. So I would give him some credit as well.
Sure.
But obviously, I think definitely the law degree helps the accuracy. And from an outsider perspective, I was about to be like, I don't know, and then I thought about like one thing I can also give the movie credit for, and not that especially current climate, I don't necessarily think that Southern culture necessarily needs to be the most respected thing. At the same time, I I will give the movie credit for that. I think it gives a hell of a lot more of an accurate portrayal of like South and how Southerners are, and just like the kind of general feel and stuff of it. Than like I think anybody, if it was like a director from New York, I think there would have been a little bit of like a middle finger somewhat to like the
Yeah.
South, or just like
Yeah.
or a certain feel of it, as opposed to just being kind of outside of it and being like, okay, well, I can see this, and just sort of make it a little more accurate, or a little more nuanced than other American directors have done.
I believe this is in my notes somewhere, but the director supposedly really made an effort to not give a stereotypical view of the South. And it was mentioned, I believe, in the commentary when I listened to it a couple weeks ago, that the movie didn't do well in the South at all. And that's they were disappointed with that because they went through so much trouble to be respectful towards Southerners, but they pretty much figured out Southerners don't want to see themselves represented on screen, or at least they didn't at the time, because they were usually represented so negatively.
And that makes sense probably why I didn't really ever see the movie until I was older anyway also. So
could be. What do you think, Ryan?
I mean, yeah, ultimately what Robin said, yes.
Okay.
It did, like, it could have also taken place in like little dipshit Midwest place too, perhaps. But I like the contrast between those two very different worlds, because it's like, it's just kind of the premise of it, that like those places do exist. Mm-hmm. These like just shit-stained, totally small little towns where kind of like everyone knows everybody. And they set that up so great. Like when I just heard someone shot Jimmy Willis, and like she knows the Sac-a-Suds guy. You know what I mean? And he says she's dead. Oh, who would do such a thing? And like, it's just kind of wrong place, wrong time on this road trip going through a town where they like sell dirt and stuff, you know, like literally, like. But yes.
Okay. The movie was written by Dale Launer, who had previously written a handful of 80s classics such as Ruthless People, Blind Date, and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, all classics in my opinion. He got the idea in college after hearing about a lawyer who finally passed the bar exam after his 13th attempt. He was then inspired by the humor of Sam Kinison when figuring out Vinny's voice, which frankly I don't see, but whatever. I don't see much. I don't think Sam Kinison when I think of Vinny. I just don't.
No.
I think Joe Pesci.
I think Joe Pesci, exactly.
That's the way Joe Pesci just naturally talks. Like,
right.
You know,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Joe Pesci owns the role. He also took inspiration from a trip he took through the South where he got stuck in the mud and had to have his car repaired, from several sessions with an attorney where he reviewed legal trial processes while writing the script. So yeah, he did his research too.
And you reminded me of the fact that the car thing is also insanely accurate. So like apparently the writer is a car expert. He went on to go and say that like that bit about like this certain what was it, the GM whatever car being this model whatever, that
Buick or something.
What is absolutely accurate. Like that is something that happened between like the 66 and 67 whatever it was, like that is accurate too, because he was like obsessed with cars in his youth, and he went on to like talk about that weird fact.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's awesome. And are you familiar with any of Dale Launer's other movies that I mentioned? Ruthless People?
I've heard of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. That's the only one I've heard.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is the best of the bunch. The only one that I would say might surpass My Cousin Vinny is Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. That's a dark humor masterpiece, in my opinion. It's from the late 80s. Steve Martin, Michael Caine, Frank Oz directed it. Great movie. So you haven't seen Blind Date, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, or Ruthless People? Okay. I recommend
them. I've seen not Blind Date. The other two I've seen. It's been ages though.
Okay. Oh, so you have seen Ruthless People and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? Yeah. I recommend them. Then I won't ask how they rank amongst them since you guys don't know them so well. All right. So here's where we get to some. I thought this was amazing. Thank God this didn't happen, is all I'll say. but Andrew Dice Clay was the studio's first choice for the role of Vinny. Thank God they changed their mind. Or thank God it didn't work out. It didn't work out. I don't know if he rejected them. I don't know if they rejected him. It just didn't work out. Other actors considered for Vinny were Danny DeVito, Peter Falk, Robert De Niro, and James Belushi. Save for DeVito and De Niro, none of them were the Italian American the producers wanted. Then, of course, they eventually went with Joe Pesci, who was hot off Lethal Weapon 2 and Goodfellas. Can you imagine any of those actors? The only one that I can imagine is Danny DeVito.
Yeah, I can imagine
Yeah,
Danny
I could see that.
I can picture Danny DeVito.
He's not a New York like Italian American. He's from New Jersey. Then again, where's Joe Pesci from? I don't even know. Like,
Joe Pesci is definitely New York.
Yeah.
I forgot. You're right. I thought DeVito was New York. You're right. He's New Jersey. I forgot about that. He's definitely Italian, but he's. I don't think he's. I think he is from New Jersey.
For some reason, I can maybe see Peter Falk. Maybe that's just because of like Made and the amount of Columbo reruns I've seen. I don't know. Like I could maybe see him as that, but definitely not. I mean, fuck Jim Belushi.
Jay, it's Jay.
So, you watch it.
Call him Jay.
James.
I know I shouldn't be saying incendiary shit on a fucking podcast, but
who cares?
Jim Belushi. If for whatever reason you're watching, fuck you. Okay.
Disagree.
Kidding. But otherwise, I can see Danny DeVito. Yeah,
I can definitely see Danny DeVito. I can see James Belushi, doing a halfway decent job, but I don't think he would have been right for the role. I think the only one that I would have maybe cast was Danny DeVito, but I don't want to picture anybody but Joe Pesci playing that role.
No.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Pesci, like, he kind of, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but to me, he seems like he is, like, one of the actors who gives you that sort of cliche, like, Italian-American attitude, like, what, you talking to me? Type thing, like...
Yeah, he does it effortlessly. He does it naturally. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
that's what I think. Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add?
I mean, Talisky, I'd like to ask, did you see K-9? Did you see Mr. Destiny? Did you see Blues Brothers Super Bowl halftime? Sorry, I'm kidding. No, I mean, it's silly trying to picture anybody else but Joe Pesci. Same with you. I could see Danny DeVito, like if it out of that bunch.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's silly trying to picture anybody else in it.
I love Danny DeVito. He would have done a great job, but I prefer Joe Pesci in that role. I don't want to see anybody else but Joe Pesci in that role. So
right.
For Mona Lisa, Lorraine Bracco, who was Ray Liotta's girlfriend in wife in Goodfellas, and Carol Davis, who I don't even I looked up some of her roles. I don't think I've seen. I don't know her. But those were the two actresses who were offered the role, but they both declined the role. Director Lynn chose Marissa Tomei, who went on to win a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for the role after visiting the set of John Landis and Sylvester Stallone's Oscar and seeing her work. Can you imagine anybody else but Marissa Tomei?
No, absolutely not. And that actually makes a hell of a lot more sense that he visited Oscar, which is what I love that movie.
Yes,
and that's a true like unknown fucking cult film.
Yeah,
Oscar. But anybody who, if you have not seen it, watch that movie.
It's a good movie. You introduced it to me. The reason I saw it is because of you. And it's
good movie.
It's definitely good. Good. Can anybody picture anybody but Marissa Tomei in the role?
No, and they have like a perfect connection with each other too.
Yes,
like
their chemistry.
The two of them act perfectly.
Yeah.
Like how an Italian-American relationship is, just the constant arguments and stubbornness and disagreements on shit, yet they still love each other. Like the argument that just gets louder.
Right. The arguments.
Go for it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The arguments become very flirtatious.
Yes.
Every time. Almost.
There's that scene in the hotel room where they're arguing, but then it turns into sex talk pretty much.
Yeah.
They're just like,
well, even when she's on the stand and like talking about the cars, and she gets so annoyed and doesn't want to be there, but next thing you know, like they're flirting at the end of that part.
Exactly. They're a couple whose love is based. It's volatile, but it's still based in total 100% love. And I don't.
Yeah.
Their chemistry is pure magic, and you don't even. I think she was in her 20s and he was in his 40s or 50s at the time. You don't even think about that watching them.
No, no.
They just. I think there was a pretty big age. I could be wrong.
Right.
I didn't look this up, but I'm pretty sure there was a
Right.
pretty significant age difference between the two of them because she was pretty young.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
It doesn't even occur to me. It doesn't even.
Right.
Yeah,
doesn't-
not until you said it, but
Yeah. It doesn't even. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody but her. She. I said this before we started recording. Comedians rarely, if ever, win Oscars for comedic roles. Uh, I mean, this is a case where, thank God that happened because
Yeah.
Right.
this is an amazing role. I mean, an amazing performance. All right, here's a very interesting bit of potential casting. Ben Stiller and Will Smith, who were both rising in their careers at the time, were originally cast as Bill and Stan, Vinny's nephews, and his friend. But there was a lot of concern about having a Jewish and a black person in prison in the South. Ralph Macchio and Michael Whitfield went on to play the roles. Can you imagine Stiller and Smith in the roles? Would it have been possible or problematic?
It would have been for the like I will somewhat agree with that. Like especially in 1992, that would have like there's a lot of shit with that. Yeah. Like just like at the end of the day, Will Smith would not have walked out of that fucking courtroom. I don't care how innocent the fuck he was. It wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Like that would have been unbelievable, and everyone knew it would have been unbelievable. So like I wouldn't necessarily say something like they wouldn't have been right for the roles in terms of like how the roles were performed, because there's not really. I mean, no offense to like Ralph Macchio and whatever I can't remember his name, but like it's not like those roles weren't like
Michael Whitfield.
Were not that daunting or like it wasn't like that irreplaceable of a role, but
Fair
at
enough.
the same time, like,
fair enough.
I agree with you. Like they like these roles, like even if this was like the early on part of like Will Smith and like Ben Stiller, like these roles are just so like insignificant for like how they are as actors, like I can't imagine them just sitting there with like a few lines,
I think Ralph Macchio has a really nice moment, and I'm going to bring this moment up later when we talk about our favorite scenes, but when he's convincing his friend to go with Vinny and he's telling the story about the magician and the card trick, that's a great moment. And I thought, and Ralph Macchio, as we know from watching, as if you've seen Cobra Kai, he really does have acting chops. So it's good. I thought he did a great job in the role. He just wasn't overall, and especially the friend, they weren't given that much to do. So,
Right.
I can see other people in the role. It's not like as much as the actors did a good job, I wouldn't say they were necessarily irreplaceable, but I can't exactly see Stiller and Will Smith in the roles either. I think that would have been,
no.
I don't think that would have fit.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they didn't do a ton in it, but there is still kind of this, I don't know, Abbott and Costello-esque type of thing with them. Like Stan's freaking out, and like Ralph Macchio is trying to calm him down the whole time. Like it still requires some level of skill set, for them. And I thought they were perfect.
Yeah,
I don't think it like. We do kind of see a lot of them, like sort of to a degree. Like they're the first people in the movie. Like they've kind of set everything up. But
they're definitely straight men. They're definitely straight men.
Right.
Both of them. Like Joe Pesci has that scene, another scene that I'll bring up in a little bit, where he first meets, where he first comes to the prison.
It's one of my favorites.
I'll bring it up because it's one of my favorite scenes too. But where Joe Pesci's talking about one thing and Michael Whitfield's reacting to him, his reactions are pretty great.
Yeah.
When he thinks,
absolutely.
When he thinks Joe Pesci is there to rape him.
Could fuck him. Yeah.
It's he plays it pretty great, and that's where a straight man does their job. And being the straight man, as we all know, is one of the hardest roles to play. So I think they both did a great job. Were they irreplaceable? Not necessarily. So. The movie is set in Alabama, but interiors and exteriors were shot in different locations throughout Georgia. A courtroom set used in the heat of the night was used for the courthouse scenes. The prison scenes were shot in a real prison in Georgia, and the prisoners seen in the film, most notably in the basketball courts, were real. Um, Taliski, this is a question for you. How authentic does the film feel regarding its depiction of the South, you being from there? And you kind
Oh,
of
definitely. Like, I mean, like especially since it's like I'm from
you
Georgia.
answered this,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it looks like it looks like any bumblefuck town in Georgia. Like, I mean, truly any small town, and I've been to God knows how many of them. It looks like that.
Okay.
The I think I've told you about the fun tidbit of why like so many Southern movies are filmed in Georgia is because
Yeah.
of Deliverance and
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
Like, for anybody who doesn't know, I don't know if I told you this, Ryan. Once Deliverance was filmed and it was like a big hit, and they wound up getting, I think the state wound up getting a decent amount of money from that film. Georgia like lessened whatever kind of fees that films would take to film, and so Georgia became like a big hotbed for a lot of film
It's a
stuff.
huge
Like
hotspot
Atlanta,
even today.
especially.
Yeah.
Right now,
So,
it's like the
yeah.
second Hollywood practically.
There's a lot of film. All that happened because of fucking Deliverance.
Right.
Like,
Interesting.
and,
Okay.
and yeah.
Same thing.
You know.
New Mexico is kind of the same thing right now. Like
Really?
with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and then like No Country for Old Men, True Grit. Like any Western exteriors are done often in New Mexico right now because some tax cut bullshit or something. I don't quite understand it, but
it's usually a tax incentive that brings them out of California. Yeah.
It's pretty affordable to film in New Mexico. They intentionally make it that way.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they've done with Georgia. Yeah, I believe the majority of Marvel movies for a time period there were shot in Georgia. You always see the thing at the end.
So many fucking movies there, but yeah, that also that is like when you said that, like I was like, of course it was filmed in Georgia. Yeah, like
right.
I wish I could name specific cities, but what Wikipedia said and what Jonathan Lynn said on his commentary weren't the same thing, so I'm just leaving that out. Somebody made a mistake, so I don't know. I don't know exactly what cities, but it was filmed primarily in Georgia. Does the film itself, and you pretty much already answered this, but does the film itself, you think it's an accurate portrayal of the South?
I would say so. I mean, especially like the Grit restaurant, like that. That looks like, I mean, God knows how many places I went to get fucking breakfast at, especially as a kid. Like, from the dude to like how the fucking sign, like all of it is about as accurate as a restaurant looked like in 1992 in Georgia. Like that is what it fucking looked like. That's what you would have experienced and dealt with. Like all of it, and especially the confusion of like the whole like Grit conversation. Like because a lot of shit is just kind of automatic in the South. Of just like you know this because it's just obvious, and then if anybody outside comes from it and it's just like doesn't have a clue, it's just like, how do you not know what the fuck this is? Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
Is there, sorry, not to get off topic, but is there real places where like there's a steam whistle that just tells everyone it's time to get up? Like I mean, everyone wakes up at the same time. It would be a nightmare to me.
As me as a parent city boy in my college town of Athens, I never dealt with that, so I don't know. But I can say I wouldn't be surprised. Like if there was a place like I think of any place like Winterville, I don't think would have had anything like that. But like some places are so goddamn small. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Like I truly wouldn't. So
God.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Nice. Yeah. As I said earlier, we discussed this earlier. Jonathan Lynn said the film didn't do well in the South because Southerners were skeptical about another negative depiction in a movie. Lynn believes they were depicted with affection, and he goes on to elaborate that there really is no villain or bad guy in the movie other than the legal system itself. That's kind of an interesting observation. Do you, agree or disagree?
I would agree totally. Yeah.
There's nobody who's like out to get anybody. I mean, yes, the judge and the prosecutor are both, but they're doing their jobs. But you see them in the end as soon as they realize, hey, we're wrong here. These guys are innocent. they wash their hands immediately. They're good characters.
Yeah.
They're good people. So I think
Yeah.
it's really cool. Yeah, never occurred to me. But yeah, there's really no bad guy in the movie. So
Right. The one thing I did notice rewatching it, it's cruel as it sounds, is the dude who gets shot is very unlikable to me
yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah,
Like when he
He doesn't
doesn't
fill the
fill
cup
up.
all the way.
Yes, and then he's like shitty about it when he
Yeah.
asks him to fill up because it's a large.
yeah,
But yeah, I agree. The judge, I guess, maybe kind of, but he's just kind of he's ultimately just a hard ass
yeah,
and explains himself perfectly. He says, when it comes to procedure, I'm an impatient man, and
yeah.
you need to know how it works here.
So Ryan, what you are saying is that real villain was the clerk. He deserved to die. Is what you're saying.
I'm not the one who doesn't like James Belushi here, so I don't know who the real villain is. Mr. Destiny, K9, Blues Brothers Super Bowl halftime show. Look him up.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. I mean, sorry. But I ultimately agree.
Nice.
Yeah, and that is, that is refreshing. There's kind of not a villain officially.
Yeah. All right, let's go through the characters and actors, even though we've already talked about some, so don't feel like you have to say much if you don't want to. Joe Pesci, Vinny, we've already discussed him. Brilliant, irreplaceable, wonderful chemistry with Marissa Tomei. I don't really have much to add. Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I found interesting about their relationship in the movie is just like I didn't really notice this before, but just sort of like how when the movie starts off, like it kind of looks like Joe Pesci doesn't have like respect for her. Like he's kind of just like a bit like misogynist in a way. Like he's just like you're my fiance, whatever.
Yeah.
But like towards the end of the film, like he respects her so much more. And the way you really see this, in my opinion, is like how when they first come into that town, like he acts like she doesn't know anything about cars, and he's just like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But then like at the end, she knows everything about cars, and he's just like, yes, thank you, yes, and like he's like respecting her so much more.
Yes.
I didn't see this before, like when I've seen the movie, but I noticed it now.
Yeah, that's a really cool arc to their relationship. I never verbalized that for myself, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. But yeah, Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei, we've discussed them. Again, irreplaceable, magical chemistry. I mean, what else can you say? It's just I wouldn't want to see anybody else play those roles. Ralph Macchio is Bill and Michael Whitfield is Stan. We discussed them. They did fine. They're not necessarily irreplaceable, but they did fine. They did well for what the role demanded. All right, getting on to people we haven't talked about yet. Bruce McGill, Sheriff Farley.
He's great.
Sure.
I mean, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, he's great.
I like everybody in it. Like everyone does so good. Like depicting that type of place and everything. I liked him.
Yeah. And we just found out, I just found out from Taliski that this was Fred Gwynn's final movie role. He died from pancreatic cancer shortly after making this movie. And again, great presence, great in the role. I can't imagine the movie without him.
Yeah, I mean, like, just his, between him and Joe Pesci arguing back and forth between each other, I think it's great how different their accents are. Like, obviously Joe Pesci has like that Italian American, like New Yorker accent, but then his accent, how it's like, to me, like based on like what I've heard, he does like a good job, like with sort of southern pronunciations of words, like how instead of saying just what, he says what, like throwing in that H there more, and it's just like a complete contrast between the two of them. Anyway, that's just something I noticed.
No,
but
that's great. That's great. Yeah.
Anybody else? It is. Yeah, he does a very good job with the accent. I think the thing for him that like makes him irreplaceable is just his face, just how goddamn grumpy he looks, which just works so well for the. It's like I feel that there might have been anybody else who could have done the performance in just a general performance, but like that face along with the performance is kind of irreplaceable. Like it's just perpetually just like I don't know how to describe it, but it's just his face makes that role and just makes the judge as good of a character as it is. So
yeah, he's very worn and very experienced is the thing I get. Like he's seen a billion trials. They've all been in this probably that same courtroom, you know, like he's scary. He's very intimidating.
And the height difference between the two of them also, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Joe Pesci's character, like he has like that sort of like street smart, like New Yorker attitude where he's just like, I'm not gonna put up with this shit. Like I'm not dealing with this. Like what do you want? You want me to get another suit? Like there's mud on the other. You make me buy this suit.
And he got the thrift store one and explains that, and the judge just says, "Are you on drugs?"
It's wonderful banter between the two of them. Lane Smith, prosecutor Jim Trotter III. Again, I don't have much to say about him other than he did a fine job.
All I gotta say is this hand motion, like that he does. Like I forget the lines, but you know, like
pinnacle. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or his thing? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And lastly, Ryan, you brought up this character earlier. This is one of the funniest characters in the movie, is Austin Pendleton as John Gibbons, the stuttering public defender. What a great bit. I mean, you don't want to make fun of people who have stuttering issues, but at the same time,
he's just nervous.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like he naturally has that. It's just him being extremely nervous.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
When they first meet, he's very straightforward and seems like, you know, he kind of knows his shit. He's, you know, nice guy, but then just shits the bed both times that he has to try to talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, I also never noticed this until I saw this like in like HD like form. It's just like when he's up there, like, you know, stuttering, you can see like sweat on his face too, like to show like exaggerated his nervousness even more. You know,
Never noticed that.
I love how he goes back to like Stan, is it? And he just like pats him on like the shoulder, and he's like, "Yes, I did a good job." Like,
right.
Attitude, you know.
Yeah.
He's a tough one. Like he blames it on the witness. Just like he's a tough one.
Yeah. And there's a number of single scene and short and slightly reoccurring roles. The locals of the town. Anybody stick out to you? Anybody that you want to mention? Or yes,
the guy in the neck brace cracks me up.
Nice.
Not because he's in a neck brace, but because like Vinny spots him and he's like, "What happened?" It was like, "Were you in an accident or something?" And no, I fell. Just a guy.
It's just like, did this happen at somebody else's place or your own? My own.
My place. Shit. He's just a dude who probably just got wasted and fell down in his house.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like the $200 guy.
Yeah. Yes, he's good. He's good.
Kind of a bar, like just these barfly morons.
I love it's not quite one of my favorite scenes, but I love that little 1 second fight scene between.
I was about to mention that.
That's
that is one of the things that sticks in my memory.
That is just
the way like jumping up. Yeah.
He's like a foot taller than him, and
he jumps and hurls himself. That's one of the best moments. That's probably the best physical comedy moment in the movie. I mean, and there's a few good physical comedy bits, but that bit is definitely one of the best in the movie.
Well, even just the two of them talking in the bar for the first time, like it's just like, again, you see like Joe Pesci's like street smart, where he's just like not going to tolerate some moron, and he's just like, you don't have the money, get the money, and then we can fight. You know,
exactly.
Right.
Well, it goes from Joe Pesci waving him off, and then he's just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then the guy eggs him on, and then it's great.
Right.
I actually never knew this before the movie, but the whole thing of rolling up the money to hide like what is in it, like I saw this as a
Right.
little kid and didn't know anything about that. You know?
Yeah.
What's I never noticed, I mean, really till rewatching it, was that scene is right after Ralph Macchio explains to Stan how he could see things,
Yeah.
like with Alakazam, the magician, and
Yeah.
how like he can kind of spot bullshit,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And he immediately says, "How do I know that's not a 20 with a bunch of ones around
Yeah.
it?" But yeah, Robin, I that cracked me up too. He's like, "All right, do you have it? All right, let me see it. I can get it. All right, get it. Then we'll fight."
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, and we're moving on to favorite scenes. I'm gonna narrow mine down to three. It's hard to, but my three favorite scenes are me being the sicko that I am, Vinny's entrance into the prison, and misunderstanding him as a prison rapist. Just it's just a brilliant. It's cheap gag, but it's just brilliantly played, and the dialogue's amazing. And it's like, and I'll hear the dialogue that I singled out. I mean, if I was in your situation, I'd want to get this through this whole thing as quickly and with as little pain as possible. Look, it's either me or them. You're getting fucked one way or the other. And I did not come down here just to get jerked.
Just to get jerked off.
It's
Yeah.
just it. I mean, they're talking about two different things. They're in two different worlds, and it's just a laugh out loud moment. It's a cheap gag, but it's done so well. It's just
And it seems like that could be completely realistic,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
guy who's scared in prison and the other guy like it's just like what the
he's
I'm trying to
just
help you here,
calm
like,
and
you know.
nice about him. Like the poor guy thinks that this guy's being really sensitive to him, that he's about to rape him. So it's just terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's great.
What does he say? He tells him like that he should be grateful.
Yeah.
And he says, "You think I should be grateful?" And and he's just like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's your ass, not mine."
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love that scene. And probably, I don't know what my favorite scene is, but my next favorite scene out of my three picks are Vinny convinces Bill to stay with him with the card trick story, which Pesci learned how to do. And then this, I kind of count this as one scene. And then Bill tells Stan why he believes in Benny, the story about the magician at the wedding. He was just being Benny. He was just being a quintessential Gambini. Electricity flickering from execution, and then there goes quintessential Norton. So they have this threat over them of that they're about to get executed, or they could potentially get executed. But Ralph Macchio is telling his friend, "Hey, I believe in this guy. This is why I believe in this guy," and it's just a really nice moment. It's just a really it's just a really nice moment. I love that scene. Yeah, what do you guys think of that scene?
I mean, well, that scene. Sorry, I will let others speak on that scene.
Okay.
I mean,
Any comments?
Yeah, good.
Cool.
Good scene.
Cool. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. And then my last pick for my favorite scene would be, and there's not much to say about this. It's the final courtroom scene. Mona Lisa's final testimony on the stand, the interaction between her and Vinny. It's just magical. It's funny. It's romantic. It's moving. It's sweet. It's just great. It's just great scene. What are you guys' favorite scenes?
I mean, I don't know if I have. So it's not like a particular scene. Like I love just like all of the court scenes, like how Joe Pesci argues back and forth with judge, and then like I love how when he's like got the witnesses on the stand, he kind of like just treats them like he's educating them, like look at these pictures, how many bushes are here, like
Yeah.
are your glasses thick enough, like
Yeah.
look at these windows, what is this window right here, what do you call this on the window, dirt? How long does it take you to make a grid? 5 minutes. Nobody else on this world can make 5 minutes. I guess you make magic grits. Like all of that is great. But then also just like the scenes like with him and Marissa Tomei outside of the court, just arguing with each other, like being so stubborn with each other and so many things. very realistic, like again with like how Italian Americans tend to be. But one other thing I like a lot is also just like how he can't sleep. Like he
Yeah.
goes into like this hotel or whatever, and he can't sleep because of like one noise that's bothering him,
Yeah.
or just like the silence in general. But the prison where there's all this shit going on, he sleeps comfortably.
Exactly.
I've not been in a prison, but like in similar scenarios, it's like I was used to living in New York City and Chicago where it was constant noise, you know. But then like I'd go visit my parents in like the suburbs someplace, or like relatives of mine who live in rural areas, and it's so quiet. I'm just like, the fuck? Like, where is the noise? Like, is something happening like that's gonna sneak up on me? I cannot sleep through that. Also, just how dark it is too. Like that, there's no light coming in anywhere. I'm just like, I'm not comfortable with this. Like,
Yeah.
I can't sleep because of this. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, similar thing happened to me with the cruise ships. I think I told you about that before. Like, cruise ships always had like a constant noise, and then I like once I got off the cruise ships and moved back to the city, somehow the city was actually quieter than the ships, and I couldn't fall asleep without having some sort of like constant drone, like a white noise machine or just something, because like I just needed some sort of hum or creak or something to be able to fall asleep. So it's reminiscent. So yeah.
Nice. Nice.
I guess it would be my favorite scenes. I think we already mentioned one. For whatever reason, as quick as it is, I just laugh every single fucking time. I just imagine Joe Pesci jumping sideways and hitting the dude. That gets me every fucking time. It's
great,
just such a
great
funny
moment.
image. But a lot of the scenes that you guys talked about are scenes. I was actually going to specifically say like all the questioning scenes, but specifically the one with like the lady with the glasses, because like he was like so like it's like you're like he was educated but also like nice and gentle. Like the other ones he had kind of an edge, and with her he was very like respectful and nice and just like very like gentle, just being like, so what, you know, let's just test this out for example. And he gets like the string and just goes like, so how many things am I holding up, and like all that stuff. It's just like it was very very nice. What are the other scenes? I do like the grit scene and just showing how much lard people actually fucking use.
I didn't realize that was lard till just when I watched it. I was like, "That's lard." I thought it was. I didn't know what it was. I just never. It just never occurred to me. I was just like, "Yeah, whatever." And then I was watching it. I was like, "They're putting fat on. That's a big scoop of fat." Oh, that was disgusting.
Yep. Just seeing that kind of cultural not matching up shit. Just like that's that would just happen. Yeah, there'd just be plop.
Yeah.
And it's just like, here's your heart attack. And definitely, the questioning scene. Like I said, like I think I mentioned it before. That entire thing about like the cars, the accuracy of the tire marks and all that shit is just a great scene. Like there's shit tons of good scenes in that movie, but those are the three that kind of stick out.
Yeah, it was hard for me to narrow it down to three. I mean, honestly, I could probably pick three more and probably make an argument as to why they're even better.
Oh, and the magician one also, like that him actually doing the magic trick was fucking great. Also,
yeah, I love that. That's one of mine. Yep. How about you, Ryan?
Definitely when Vinny shows up.
Yeah.
And Stan thinks he's there to like get sexually assaulted, but Vinny's like they're talking about helping him.
Yes.
With the case. That's it's just very very funny.
Yeah.
Austin Pendleton's performance. When he goes up there, you think he's going to crush it because he's an actual experienced public defender. I do like other one. I love. When Marissa Tomei is trying to kind of sets it up as you think she's trying to talk him out of hunting, but she's actually talking about his.
That's one of my favorite lines. That's one of my favorite lines. Yes.
He asks her like
that whole scene between them is just wonderful.
Yeah, like all of her moments when he thinks he's like, oh, I got it. I'm going to try to sneak into his files, and and. She's just like, oh yeah, well, it's called disclosure, you dickhead.
That is a great scene. That is great.
Like where she almost knows, she's actually, she's reading the same book he is and stuff.
It's probably likely that she knows more about law than he does.
Yeah.
Probably. And it's not to take away from him being a good lawyer, because as we all know,
Right.
he's a good lawyer, but he's more street smart and she's got more book smart than he does.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I love that moment.
And when she outsmarts the dude from the FBI,
Yeah.
and like the other attorney's pleading, like, "What do we do? Like, what the fuck? You got to get me out of," and he's just kind of like, "She's right, she's correct."
Yeah.
Um, and after the magician scene, after Vinny talks him into it, and uh, Ralph Macchio's telling Stan about it.
Yeah.
Just Stan's reactions to some of the stuff really are underrated.
Yeah.
To me, when he asks him, he says he thinks you should give it to him. What was he before he was an attorney? A fucking comedian. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, those are always the ones that I'm like kind of looking forward to if I rewatch it.
Yeah. Nice. And now favorite lines. I mentioned my favorite lines during Vinny's introduction in the prison, or Vinny's first entrance into the prison. I think I'm gonna have to go with some pretty standard classics though. For my three favorites, my favorite line, and I'm not even sure. Is this movie really a one-liner kind of movie? It's kind of more interactions, and it's not really. It's more reactions and interactions than it is one-liners.
Yeah.
So my favorite moment, my favorite line would be what you brought up earlier with the deer, and I'm just going to read. Joe Pesci asked Marissa Tomei, "What about these pants I got on? Do you think they're okay?" And then she just comes back at him with, "Imagine you're a deer. You're prancing along. You spot a little brook. You put your little deer lips down on the cool, clear water. Bam! A fucking bullet rips off part of your head. Your brains are laying on the ground in little bloody pieces. Now I ask you, would you give a fuck what kind of pants that son of a bitch who shot you was wearing?" Great moment. Great. I mean, her delivery, it's just it. I mean, mwah. It's just it might be for me. It might be the biggest laugh in the movie. And I do remember, now that I mention it, I do remember when I saw that in theaters 30 years ago or whatever, however many years ago. I do remember that scene getting a big laugh. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And then the other two are they're great lines. They're great deliveries. My biological clock is ticking like this.
Yes.
Everybody knows that line. It's delivered brilliantly. She's just magic. And then, of course, the two Utes that I brought up earlier being those are my favorite lines. Those are the most memorable. Those are the ones I think of when I watch My Cousin Vinny. What about you guys?
I mean, I agree with you about like the prison, the whole thing with the deer. Like those are great, but just like going into like the whole, it's not so much the lines, but it's like just the whole arguments and their lines back and forth between the two Utes, as well as their arguments about the suits. Like there's just multiple lines in that are great. So I can't really say like it's just like one person their lines. It's sort of just like the interaction and
Right.
what they're both saying.
Right. Exactly. That was kind of what I found too. That was kind of
yeah.
What about you guys?
I agree with the biological clock. I was also thinking about one part that I like. It's not really as much of a funny line as it's a funny moment when yet again he's with like the lady with the glasses, and he like goes back and he takes the string and he puts the fingers up, and then like the judge is like 3 fingers. And he's like, the judge.
The jury needs to know. The jury needs to note that he's holding up 3 fingers.
And he's like, okay. Like that is just like a kind of a cool, just like funny little moment.
The movie's humor is people reacting to one another. That's
You. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Taliski.
No, that's go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, that you cannot write reactions,
right?
And everybody in it's just so fucking good.
Right.
Yeah, Taliski. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I already forgot. So
gotcha.
Okay.
I did write in my notepad my favorite lines. Right. That was
yeah.
Where
we're at.
When they're on the phone with his mom telling them that they got arrested, and like Stan's trying to like tell him like everything that's going on, and he keeps shushing him, and Stan's trying to give her just some perspective on where they are, and he says, "The clans here, they're inbreds, they sleep with their sisters." and everyone kind of looks at him like in the office, and he just says, "Some of them do."
Some of them do. Yes.
Uh, let's see.
I forgot all about that moment. That's a great
I did too.
Oh, and also it's not so much it's what's like we've been saying, it's these little compartments of dialogue. It's hard to pin it down to lines because it's like so scene based. But when he first gets arrested, and when he's still Ralph Macchio still thinks that they're there because they took a can of tuna. Sheriff Farley is questioning him because he thinks these are the murderers. Um, and he asks him, have you been made aware of your rights? And he says, yeah, I have. And I'm sorry, it was a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the sheriff was just
again,
kind of
it's like
fucking shot someone.
It's like the scene in the prison where you have two characters talking about two completely different things.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. And
just that
yeah, it does
that exchange with the sheriff. Yeah. And he assures the sheriff, he says, just so you know, Stan didn't have anything to do with it. And the sheriff's like, did he help you plan it? And he's, they just think they're talking about him accidentally taking tuna. And he's like, no, I mean, it wasn't planned. It just, it just like happened.
Yeah.
And that
he's
whole
talking about shooting somebody in the freaking head. Yeah.
But yeah, that, and then I think I may have already brought it up. Let's see. Then the next scene, when they're asking Stan, and Stan's reaction, he says, "An accessory? Are you guys kidding? I didn't help. I didn't plan it." Because Stan thinks they're talking about him taking a can of tuna. He's like, "Are you fucking insane?" But yeah, those.
Nice. Anything anybody else wants to add, or we good? All right. I'm gonna bring this up because it's Randy Edelman's score. It blends in and highlights the humor of the movie quite well, but it doesn't draw attention to itself. It just fits the mood very, very well. I'm not even sure if I can hear the score in my head, to be honest, while I'm thinking about it. I just know it highlights the movie very well. There's never a false moment in the score, and that might be the best. I mean, when I think of my favorite scores, I think of Edward Scissorhands, Glory, tunes that you really think of, and tunes that you really remember, and that really stand out and soar. This movie doesn't do that. This movie's score is more invisible. It's more wallpaper, but it services the movie very, very well, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also just sort of think of it as like it's very 90s sounding. It sounds like it sounds like the typical like 90s theme music that's supposed to be provided to like a war movie, even though this isn't exactly a family movie. It still has that feeling to it,
Right.
Yeah. I honestly can't remember the score.
I can't either.
Which I mean, to me, I think that is completely fine. I think some movies need a score to kind of like elevate, or kind of maybe not even one elevate, but also give a good cushion or support, or like thematically like make stuff. And then other movies, you don't really need the biggest of scores. It just the movie, just put some music in that sort of like just helps fill whatever moments in, and that's totally fine. Like it's not like the Untouchables score or anything like that. But it's if I can't remember it, but I still think the movie was good. Like it didn't detract from the movie. So like, because I've heard quite a few that I can think of that like, oh, this is fucking shit. And
music's
like,
getting there are movies where the music gets in the way. This is definitely
what's that one Robert De Niro film where he plays a like gangster from like the 1930s or something?
Once Upon a Time in America.
Glory.
Yes, Once Upon a Time, or whatever. Like that score is way out of place for like what goes on in those scenes.
I don't remember.
But I won't even go into that.
I don't remember.
I don't know why I'm thinking Mad Dog and Glory. Isn't that the
No.
That's a really good movie. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah. I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
The score, it felt like it was copyright free.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
kind of standard. Like it's not distracting. I do the opening song. I don't know if it was like a part of the score as much as it was probably like a licensed thing from an artist, but like I don't like the song particularly, but I do think it really sets up everything very, very well.
It does.
It's like it's very fun, it's very energetic,
Yeah.
and it's called like it's like way down south. It's like about just kind of where we are, and like it's a very fun movie, and it sets it up as like, oh, this is definitely going to be a comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, the rest of it's it's like
Well,
it's
also the song that's playing in the car when Joe
Vinny gets there.
Pesci may come in, and they're just like so out of place. Like everybody just looks like, what the fuck is that music? Like,
Right.
No.
Overall, I just don't think the movie needed that big of a score.
No,
like
I think
it wasn't needed.
I think the movie needed a unmemorable score. I think the
Right.
score. I think the composer, maybe it was intentional or not, but I think he brought no ego to it, and it plays very well. It services the movie. There was talk of Vinny's mother sitting in on the courtroom proceedings, but it was cut in pre-production. There was concern, and this is probably a question for you, Robin. There was concern about Italian Americans not believing that his mother wouldn't come to support him. Would it have been too much? Would it have been too much, or do you see this aiding in the movie?
Would he come to support him?
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I can think of is just that, like, there are many, like, Italian American mothers that I know that don't like taking flights. That's the only reason I could think of that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would think the mother would be very obsessive of her children and go, like, I would imagine that she would be there and she would be screaming at the judge herself, you know, like.
I think it could have been added some humor to the movie. And I mean, they talked like this was a serious, like they were like, this is going to be a problem. Italian Americans are going to butcher us, but nobody brought it up. Nobody noticed. But it was a real serious concern for them when they were working on the script. Like, do we need, how do we have an Italian American without his mother being there? But it never occurred to me. I'm not Italian, but and from what I understand, it never occurred to most audiences. So yeah. Anybody
definitely didn't occur to me.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments?
I mean, none for me. I just love the look on Robin's face when you were just talking about it. That was all.
Yeah.
That was...
Yeah.
But otherwise, I have no idea.
Yeah. Lynn said the original script did not identify the real killers. He thought it was necessary to be a satisfying courtroom drama to identify them. Agree or disagree? I think the movie ended perfectly. We needed to know that somebody else did it. I think they needed to know that somebody else did it in order to get them off like that. But it's a pretty simple question. What any comments?
I mean, I would agree with that. It's like I thought you were saying that like we needed like to see the killer, or we needed like what like that. I don't think, but like otherwise,
just to have them catch the real killers. I think that.
Sure.
I think that was a necessary addition. Yeah.
Sure.
Because we already know it the whole time,
right?
And it's very satisfying to kind of rub it in the face of the attorneys, like they were caught like 2 days prior, I think technically, like they were arrested 2 days ago or something.
Yeah.
No, I'd agree.
Cool. We talked about reaction shots. We talked about that. I don't know if there was ever talk of it, but should there have ever been a sequel?
No, I definitely don't think so. And I think part of the reason why this is funny is because Joe Pesci his character is learning about the law more.
Yeah.
If there's another case or another movie about another case where he's much more familiar, I don't think it would be as funny.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Because he's a wiser man at the end of this movie, and he made yeah.
I mean, I can say that like maybe because there's a talented group of people who made it, maybe they could have made something successful, but I don't think it could be like potentially good, but it was definitely not needed. If you're talking about need, no, not at
I don't
all.
think it needed it. And I'm kind of glad they just left it alone, frankly, because it really works just being its own individual experience. It really works.
And you said there was actually talk of it, or are
I
you
have
just
no
asking if?
idea. I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
asked. I have no idea if there was talk or not. I
I
couldn't
want to
find any.
say
I
that I
couldn't find
heard
any
the.
evidence. What's that?
I want to say at least from the legendary YouTube video I keep talking about, like there was an interview with the writer. I want to say he did consider doing a sequel.
Okay.
I want to say I could be wrong about this, but I want to say there may have been talk about it, but I don't think it was needed.
Yeah.
It could be potentially have been good, but it wasn't needed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's not needed.
No.
The only reason I would want to see a sequel is if Jim Belushi played Vinny, but
Thank you. James, get it through your head. James.
I'm kidding.
Respect him. I know.
You're right. You're right.
You're right. Yeah, I know you're right. Last question. And this is kind of along the same lines of the last question. Would this movie work if it were made or remade today? Who could you see directing and acting in it? I don't have an answer to this. I don't think it should be remade. I don't think it. I mean, we're living in the day of remakes. I'm not sure if it would work as well today. I'm kind of, I don't really have an answer to this other than I'm not sure.
I mean, I could more likely see it becoming like a series like on like Netflix or something like that, where it's just like his character as a lawyer and his absurdity of acting and stuff, like, but I don't see it as a remake, and I have no idea who would actually play these characters.
I can't think of any modern day actors who, like, the only other actor could see playing Vinny, as we mentioned before, is Danny DeVito. I can't think of any modern day Danny DeVitos or Joe Pesci's that would excel in this role. I can't
just throw Timothy Chalamet in. That's all he fucking ever
go.
Thank you, Timothy Chalamet or Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, Ryan, the more I'm just like, I could see Jim Belushi in the movie as playing the guy who has the brace on his neck. Like, just that small part, I could see him doing that,
Yeah.
I disagree. He should be playing Vinny, and they should remake it with Jim Belushi.
Yep.
No, sorry, go ahead, dude.
I was just gonna say I could see it potentially be. The only thing I will say is that the script is strong enough that I think it could be remade. Like one, it could be made now, or B, they could essentially, following the script, remake it in a sense. It does not and should not be remade. So if that makes sense,
it could be remade, but they don't need to. Right.
If they did remake it, I think that the comedy would have to change a little bit. Like, you can't you wouldn't be able to reuse like the same sort of like jokes that happened there like in today's like sort of screening, because like it would just be looked at as like some comedy that's dead, not worth watching.
I see what I agree with you, Robin. I think if they remade it, it would probably work best as a series of some sort of like a sort of courtroom comedy.
Yeah.
And like kind of how Vinny, his kind of like hijinks, so to speak, of like kind of how he wins cases now. It just in sort of maybe a sort of unconventional way or something. But it would be a strange one to remake. But even then, I've joked about, like, I shit you not, like, next thing you know, they're gonna make a Death Becomes Her musical, and I shit you not, there's a fucking apparently it's good. I don't know.
Becomes Her musical?
I swear to God.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that. I loved that movie growing up. I had no idea they made a musical out of it.
Apparently, it's actually good. I haven't seen it, but
musical movie or live thing?
On Broadway, I think.
Yeah, I mean they made a Predator musical at one point too. So I mean,
Spider-Man. I mean, I can't keep up.
They made a Predator musical.
Yeah, I don't think it was successful, but yes, they did.
Well, we did see Kaliski's wife in a Die Hard musical, so
that's true. Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this was fun. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.